Is that better? Right, finally. There we go. Wretched thing. And of course, now the thing isn't working. Hang on. This. Go in here. Should be working, but it's not. I don't know why. Because it's shit. It's just... This stuff is sent to try us. Anyway. So, I have a setup. I know my mouth isn't going to move, and it's annoying the crap out of me. But I believe you can hear me now, so I'm working with that. I mentioned that this was never going to be an ideal setup. This is my roller cushion. This is my big bolster cushion. This is like nearly a metre wide. Well, it's not quite that wide, but it's a window wide. Now, what you see in front of you is, well, bugger all of a corner. But also, underneath the red cloth is the strip we finished yesterday. And I am joining as I go. So I have covered it up to protect it, to try not to let it have any accidents, because, well, you know, this isn't exactly the strongest stuff in the world. And I'm currently also picking at bobbins while I talk to you, because, well, I haven't set any of them up in advance, so I've got to tie knots in them, but when they're not coming undone very well, I end up picking them apart. I'm finding this very frustrating, and not sure that this is really the answer I want, which probably means it'll be the best one. For an entire thing, because of course this is only 15 centimetres long, not the best part of a metre, so while it is highly repeatable and practical from that standpoint, not so much on a number of others. So, for example, one of the other core things that would be an issue, other than I'm really getting already concerned at how many bobbins there's going to be, and, you know, while I've got 2 pins to separate them, because I now need to bring these down because we're ready to work with you, and I need to stab my next pin in. As you can tell, we've done what? This is the 9th and 10th pair of bobbin, I'm guessing, from the top. I can't count them because there's pins in the way. But yeah, this looks like 9 and 10. Well, that's all well and good, but you and I both know that there's like 30 pairs of bobbins, and having 30 pairs of bobbins slung behind a pin doesn't seem an entirely practical solution. I mean, I can do multiple pins and do, you know, groups of 10 or something, but that's still awkward. Problem is, I haven't got anywhere flat I can put pin things down now while I work on other bobbins, if you know what I mean. Because obviously there's 2 in a pair. I've got nowhere I can put my glasses, and my glasses are being really annoying today. Everything's being really annoying today. So this may not be the longest stream, for I may have to give up. Now, giving up will also be awkward, because the manner of joins is basically permanent. So, we need... The only thing that is going alright is thanks to Nautical knotting the bobbins. But to be honest, right here, right now, Thank you. I appreciate that. I am struggling with this. Like everything, once you've got used to it, once you're underway, usually things kind of have a habit of working out. But it's... I need to point out that this bolster pillow, which, as I said, is nearly 1 metre long. Actually, I think it's something like 72 centimetres long or something ridiculous. Hang on, and I'll measure it. But let me put this on here a sec. Hang on. Like that. Get my trusty tape measure out. So, let's measure it. It is 27 inches, which is, well, it's a bit more than 27. Marginally over 27, which makes it 69 centimetres. So it's pretty wide. It's pretty wide, which makes it slightly awkward, to be honest. I've got a smaller one, but it's too small, if you know what I mean. This one has considerable girth. And when I say considerable girth, it is, she says, dropping the tape measure over it, because it is that big. It has a circumference, if the tape measure would mind staying the other side. Yeah, you... I don't know, darling. At the moment, there is nothing exciting here. So it's 36.5 inches in circumference and 93 centimetres. So basically, it is an entire window, unfortunately. So it's pretty much a window in one piece. But, as we all know, my sanity would not take that. But what it does mean is that it's not all scrunched up, which is a good thing. And obviously, for example, I can roll it backwards and forwards quite easily. So from that point of view, happy. The problem is that it's currently held up rather tenuously by an X-frame for a table, tied together basically with string. Actually, it's a piece of tape about the same sort of width as my tape measure. In fact, it might as well be a tape measure, which I did on my Inkle loom quite a long time ago. Tied in a knot that will hopefully hold it up. But if I push on it, it would move quite easily. So it's not the most stable. But like always, I find myself struggling when I've come to the end of something and I've got to start something new. Because I've got the pile of cut-off bobbins from yesterday. I've got the pile of cut-off bobbins from the square. I'm kind of sick of the sight of triangles and squares. And I kind of want to get started on the joins of strips to see how viable that is. Because if it is pretty viable, then logic says it would be better to make a half window thing with the squares. And then make a whole window thing that's kind of an invisible join. But as I've mentioned before, they gatekeep how that works. And so with that in mind, once again, we struggle because we've got to try a number of things to make it work. Now, the problem I've got is that I can't put the camera at this angle, which is the angle I have. I'm sitting, I mean, my eye line is basically where the camera is. So I look down slightly on this, which is great, but it's a little too high for me. But if I put it down any more, what you can't see, and it's not easy to show you, so I can't, is the bars that would have held the table, because it's kind of an X frame with like made out of U-shaped bits of metal. The tops of the U, or N shape for want of a better word then, the top of the N is sitting here where the bobbins are. So these bobbins actually are resting on the metal bar. So it is less than ideal. And you can go over there for a minute, because we don't need you for a second. And it is just one of those frustrating portions. Now, something else that is also kind of true with this is that it becomes quite natural to do the underhanded bobbin manipulation. I need to check that this is the right pair actually, because of the way that looks. So I'm going to grab you. You see, you are a pair, so I'm pretty sure you're a pair. And I want my pin pot here, but I am not playing balance this box of pins on here. No, it's not happening. We're not playing balance the pins. So once again, we get back into the problem of the pins will slow us down. Because while I am fairly ambidextrous, grabbing pins and putting them in holes is not going to be one of my... Okay. That's okay. Today is not Liz's best day. So. And Zukin, you should know me better than to know that it was going to be anything that exciting. See, you're definitely... This is what I don't like about the chucking them over the back of the pillow technique, is when they do tangle, it's really hard to find the friends. Well, there is that. There is that. I mean, you know, it's not like I'm offended by the joke, you know. Because, well, I've got the mind of a child too, but today, it's slightly lacking, to be honest. Today, Liz's mood is somewhat sour. Because I want to do this, but I've already realised this was a stupid decision. But it's, you know, even though I've only done a little bit, it's nearly impossible to move it. Yes, Zukin is most definitely Zukin is definitely used to me. That's okay. I mean, if it's any consolation, because, you know, to a large extent, we are, for the most part, people who will never meet. It does make it harder to keep tabs of everybody and who everybody is and what everybody does, because and you know, on you know, social topics of the year, what gender everybody is, because it's easy to forget, especially when you've got dumb names. I mean, no offence to any of you, but you know what I mean. The people who have really dumb names, and you're sitting there going, I can't remember necessarily if, you know, for example, one of my common nicknames is Bugfinders. That's fine, but Bugfinders does not suggest a gender. So if I walk into something and people can't remember, I can't really be offended, now can I? I mean, there are always people who will be offended because they spend their lives offended. They seek out places to be offended, it seems. For this keeps them happy. And for those who are wondering, this is how I plan to join this one together. Thank you, Ellie. So, you pull that loop up there, pop that bobbin through it, and then we scoot it together like that. And then we wonder what I did with the lid. There it is. This crochet hook has, I mean, if I zoom up, it's not going to focus on it, but you can possibly not see how uncrochet hook that is. There is so little of a hook on that. It is quite insulting, actually. Let's leave these down here. This might be the better option. It's already. It is, but it's also, even though I'm using really skinny yarn, it's not quite enough hook to grab hold of the yarn, and it makes it quite frustrating to work with because obviously, you know, there you are trying really hard to make a good job of something, and it's really, really hard to because, well, it's just not in the mood. Now, something went wrong because you two should be a pair and you're not, but fuck it, whatever. What am I? See, I've only done 10 pairs. And already the front is crowded, in my humble opinion. 10 pairs is plenty. It's called a knitting machine needle. Or a rug hook. That's what that is. It's most likely a little rug hook. Yes, and it would make a distinct difference. But depends what you're doing with it. For this, a rug hood would work because having a slightly bulbous end to it where you entrap the thread works very well. In terms of poking it through where a needle was, not so much. I am really regretting this decision. And seriously, I'm only 10 in, and there's like 35 or whatever it is. And to be honest, the joins aren't going that well either. Looking at that. Not that I can look at that, because the moment I get close, my tits get in the way. Which is kind of what well, not that my boobs are in the way, but the joins are forming into a straight line, which kind of defeat the point. I'm trying to join two pieces of lace invisibly, and this is not the answer. Well, not like this, at least. It could be the answer, but it's not. Let me zoom in and see if you can see it very well. If I chunk over a little bit and I pull out some pins, and let's move that, bring you closer for posterity, and you're not friends with you, you're friends with you, so you go over, you go over, you go over, you go over, which means one of you's not friends. Yeah, chat's full of people and Liz is in a mood, which I do apologise sincerely for, but this is not working. And that's not helping Liz's mood. So, let me try and explain how this is not working. Let me pull this out. Pull out some pins so I can uncover what's going on underneath. So, if I roll back, I'm trying to join this piece of lace with this piece of lace. And as you can see from the top, it's already... We all have meaty... But if you look at this edge, now, what you can't overly well see from here is that the edge is zigzag, right? But if you look between the pins, and you'll have to look pretty hard because well, in theory, this should give me the best join, because if you look at how the mesh shape is formed here, it's two pairs joining together. Now, okay, I'm going to be joining this in a kind of butting... Why is it I can't... Butting together manner rather than a crossing over manner, right? But if you look in between these pins here, which, as I said, really hard, but you'll have to take my word for it if you can't see it, because that is as zooming in and as the world can give you, it's forming a straight line. Now, and I can't see it because I can't get close enough because I'm female with far too much up front. And by the time I stick my face in it, I can see that it's got a straight line where what should be the thread that goes out and come back is meeting up. Now, if you look at these dots, they form a little square. So when it comes to here, there's 3/4 of a square and a dot. And the problem is that where it meets the dot, it's kind of not. It's kind of pulling it into a shape. Now, it might be that once you let it go, it doesn't look so bad. But I have excessively few beliefs in that matter. And of course, as I said, I'm also incredibly short-sighted, but I also need long distance vision for close-up things. So if I'm wearing my glasses, I need to have varifocals, because I can't wear bifocals because my brain can't cope with a line in it. So I have to have varifocals. And my glasses, which you might be able to see actually not from there because of course it's zoomed in. But if I do this, you can possibly see that the coating is completely knackered. This is because I spend my entire day cleaning shit off it, and as a result, I've worn the coating off, which generally only takes me about 3 months. And in the UK, you go to the opticians and you say, yes, I need a new pair of glasses. And they go, yes, madam. And they will charge you a small fortune. My glasses are generally around £1,000. Good. Can I have them without coating on? Well, I'll explain a little more in that, because the answer is yes, but that has other issues. So there was a reason I was doing this version. Because the idea basically is that this pair latch on to the points of the pins going down. It should give me the butting together, right? And that would be great. But for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why, it's turning more into a straight line. Now, that could just be bad luck. It could be a whole pile of other things, and that it's not actually that, and that when I let go, it will all look really glorious. But it doesn't feel like that's the case. Oh, fuck off, ads. How do I skip ads? Oh, it's not going to give me the option to skip ads. Well, that's nice. Right, let me snooze those for a minute. Right, so one of the biggest problems I've got is that I want it to be as near invisible as I can get away with. And for it to be invisible, if you overlap it, well, it's double the thickness. It's going to show. Now, there is a technique called lassen, where you overshoot by a chunk and then kind of bind it together. But if these are all 2 threads and you suddenly have a big chunk of 5 threads, because you've got 2 from this side and 1 joining them together, well, surely that's going to show from a mile away. This was my best hope. So, the short answer is, I am going to grab my bobbins. I am going to chop. Yeah, I know, this is horrendous. Chop my bobbins again. Put them back in the pile of bobbins. And we are going to see how it turned out in the small chunk that we did. Let me take the pins out. Because, while it is only a small amount, it is a small amount to be picking out forevermore with a bit of pin and hope. And if it does work out, we can redo it. Whereas, if I waited till the end and hated on it, well, that'd be a bit annoying. So, let's take that out. And we need to move you. And because I pinned you all down, because, well, I pinned them all down, let me take this out. What you can't overly see is all the way down the strip that I made and finished yesterday. I am now peeling out the pins from the edges because I had pinned it all the way down so that I wouldn't have to do it later, and that it would not twist, go out of fun, wouldn't be a weird angle later, and all of those kind of aspects. Hey, if it's any consolation, I kind of started in September too. Only, I did do a few strips when I was a kid, but we never covered finishing anything. Because, well, I had 3 lessons, I think is the short answer. And I made... It is Black Magic Flusum V, it truly is. And it's potentially black magic of misery today, but I haven't got a good reason for being miserable today. I just am. So. And we all know that some days you wake up and you're really kind of over the moon and yeah, let's do this. And other days you get up and it's like, do I have to? You know, that's where I'm kind of at today. So I'm in the I should have stayed in bed category. So the other problem is, of course, because this doesn't have a straight edge on it, it's not that strong. And I am very wary of offending it. Right. So, now that I've taken it off, if I zoom in again, hang on, and down a little bit, you can see what I mean by, if I zoom down a little, down a little more, you can see what I mean. I've got all these little loops down the side, so it didn't have a straight edge. And that's a tail, but there we go. That's a tail, not this. Hang on. Nah, lick it. This is one of the things I hate with these threads. Once they've been anywhere near a bobbin, they curl and have a life. Right. So, all of these are little loops. There's a couple of fuck-ups. But, oh, sit still, dog. I'm not in the mood for you today. Yes, you, miss. She does this. She literally sits down and 5 seconds later leaps like someone shot her in the arse. Well, maybe I will. I don't have a gun, but maybe I will. I've got elastic bands. But if you look here, Rory, I don't need your help either, my man. I have 2 dogs, Rory and Amy, right? You can see that this is forming a straight line. Well, exactly. I've got fingers for that. I am a really good shot with a rubber band. I haven't got any decent rubber bands, but I do have a plethora of little elastic bands. So I could kind of, you know, machine gun those. Right. But as you can see here, it's made a straight line. And while that is fairly invisible, it's not invisible. And I don't know why it's made a straight line. Because it should still be little circles. Now, I've given it a bit of a tweak, and it is a little better, but not a lot. You can still see a straight line where there really shouldn't be a straight line. Because what you should see, as I said, is 2 little edges kind of overlapping. So, fuck off, glasses. Part of the problem is, looking at it, I know you can't see what I'm looking at this moment. They're not supposed to be. Because, if you think about how the lines work, the lines have to continue. So this line here becomes this line here. This line here becomes this line here. So they have to butt together because it's where the 2 corners would have met, right? The problem is that the corners aren't pointy, and the reason the corner aren't pointy is because of how the join works. Now, how to explain how the join works when you haven't got anything big enough. So we have loop coming from one side of two things, and I just can't hold multiple sticks without going mad, right? Because it's not a flat surface, and now it's not on this flat surface. I can change to a flat surface later. Hang on. So the idea was that this would come through, and you literally do this with it. But as you can see, that's not 2 threads crossing, that's 4. And it's the 4 that are making it look like a straight line. Now, how do I not do that? How do I not? Given that, you know, this loop is preformed, I can't change it. This one is a piece of string. Now I have no string, yes I do. Hang on, phone cable. Haven't got much of it, but this comes in at an angle. Bear in mind I can't see what you see because it's beyond the end of my nose. But what I can't do easily is I can't put a bobbin through that small hole, so I can't just loop it through, which would be ideal. The best I could have done was what I did, which was make a loop and stick a thing through it. Stick an end through. However, that is proving to make a straight line. So, this boils down to then, much as this is a valid thing to do, and this is how you join work as you go, this is not how we need to join this work as we go. What we need to do is introduce a third thread that will, well, 2 threads that will basically make a crisscross that goes in between. So what will happen is if that was on this row of dots, the other one would be here, and you'd have 2 that come in, go, kind of tie a knot, go round, tie a knot, go round, tie a knot, go round. So this is what I'm going to have to do, and I'm going to sit here and pick this. So please, talk amongst yourselves. I can't see your name, and I've been thinking about knots, so I've already forgotten it. You said I apologise distinctly. For my vision really is, if my nose was here, I can't see past here, right? I can't see. I am now capable of seeing just beyond the end of my nose. That's how badly short-sighted I am. So, please do not be offended that I can't see your name without putting my glasses on. But then I wouldn't be able to see to undo the picking of the knot. So, you know, I apologise profusely, but at the same time, yeah, not a lot I can do about that right now. So we undo that, and well, that's part of the reason I decided to call it quits now. Was that if I called it quits now, I've only got this small bit to unpick. Because, well, much as it on paper, you see, this is part of the problem. On paper, it was the most likely solution. In practice, we have proved that this is not the case. And I've only got a couple to go, so the problem is trying to do it without distorting the rest, and this one of course is playing me up. Of course it is, because life sucks. So, undone now. So it's looking slightly moth-eaten, but not too bad. One to go. Let's undo that. There we go. It's looking slightly moth-eaten, but there we go. Here is the pickings, as you can see. Slightly moth-eaten, but let me come out of there, go back to this. There's a reason for this. This is so that I can rearrange my furniture without having to display my rather skanky carpet. So they have stretched slightly, but nothing that can't be excused at this time. That's the only problem, of course, is that is highly vulnerable to distortion. In the real thing, I will have more solid edges, because, well, that's a thing, because you would want a more solid edge on the edge. So I'd make a solid edge on the edge. I will explain a little bit more as to what I'm actually doing, because for those who have not seen these antics before, it is slightly unclear. I'm doing a lot of this by feel, because I can't see where I put my glasses at the moment. Right, that's that off there. That's that off there. Well, at least I found a way to use this bolster cushion and the camera. That's always a bonus. Because I was a bit worried that would be complicated. Right, hang on a sec. Let me rearrange my furniture. This was a lot of fun earlier, so bear with me. I appreciate that my lips aren't moving. Normally they do, but for some reason OBS decided to eat my microphone and it hasn't picked it back up yet. So I know why that might be. Hang on. There was a thing. Hang on. On here. No. On here. No. Does that help? No, possibly not. No, they're all set to the right thing. Oh, there you go. Suddenly it's all started working again. Stupid piece of rubbish. Right. Hang on one moment while I rearrange my house. It's not too big of a deal. It's just enough of a deal, you know. Actually, let's grab you instead. Right. Plan, put you there, grab you out of there, put you over there, that over there, bring this back over here, put something on top, there we go, that goes on top. Right. Oops. Funky noises. Right. So. Now, let me have a quick look, see how that's going to turn out. Right. We're on a you're slightly higher up than you usually are. Because, well, the lace pillow was very, very full. Here's my big pile of bobbins. Now, last time I used the green one. This time I am more sensibly going to use the bigger one, which is the brown one. Which means I need to find somewhere else to put these bobbins. Hang on. Let's put the bobbins in a thing. I live in a... bobbin lace making. We generally would refer to it such as the style of lace making. So torsion, Honiton. Yeah. Let me just put all of these in here so I can scoop them up and hope I haven't lost any, because I have dropped them a couple of times since the beginning. We shall soon find out. Right. Now you're out the way. Oh look, a sin hat. That's off someone. I refer to the little elastic bands as sin hats because basically my bobbins get the little elastic bands when they've been bad. So they're now sin hats. So, I have Doody. He's a big boy, but he allows for a few more bobbins than the green one. What's the phrase in Dutch then? Not that I know any Dutch other than songsage, which apparently means sausage. And I like sausages, so hence I think that's why my mother told me it when I was a kid. Previously, for example, we used this little chap, which, as you can see, he has a smaller thing, but I don't know if it's going to let me go out a bit actually. If I do this, but if I line this side up, you'll see he finishes a lot smaller. So the green one is quite a bit smaller by about 10 centimeters or so than the brown one. So I'm actually going to peel this blue cloth off and unstick all these pins. She says, forgetting that there were 50 billion pins on the edge of this. Hang on. So this is usually stuff I do off stream because, well, it's not the most fascinating of thing. Rearranging my house and preparing pillows and bobbins and things. But it is the way of life. So let's poke you in there for a minute. So yes, well, I'd love to know what the phrase is in Dutch. Glossen. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because the German for it is very similar. Gloppel. So, not that I know much German, but I have bought many things. And in fact, I've currently got a cart with Kloppen. Yeah. I've currently got a cart with some bobbins in it. Shocker, let's buy some more bobbins. Now this is not level, so we can try leveling this up a bit more. Hang on. This underneath was the top of the table that the legs I was using for the bolster pillow. Let's move you back in a little bit because don't really need to see half my life. Now, we can, however, put you on here like this and pin you back down. It's not entirely straight, Kimber. Try harder. Yeah, that's a bit straighter. Right. So what we will do is we will make another strip. I've got more space for bobbins, which will appease my rather sad soul, because as we well know, Liz's soul has bobbin issues. I don't know about you, Ellie, but I do struggle with bobbin anxiety. It's not that I'm scared of bobbins, and the idea of doing a monster pattern in one piece, the actual size of the piece doesn't worry me. It's the 50 gazillion bobbins that go with it. And it's not even the affording 50 gazillion bobbins, for I can do that. Actually, I'm going to move that because I'm going to try and avoid the seam a little bit. Because, well, not a lot of point in working around the seam if you don't need to. So yes, I struggle with... So the reason I put this line here is to remind me that normally you would make a line here, so this is the edge, and that that only one pair goes round the bobbins on the outside to make the little bobbles on the edge. And then what I will do is I will get, not quite on a pillow, but a pair of bobbins, I will get a pair of threads on a needle, and I will go round like that and make a join. There are a few fuck ups. Do not judge my fuck ups. This is a pattern I have devised myself. I was going to do a different pattern, but I've decided it'll be easier if I just keep doing the same one because I kind of like it. We see, and that's why a big part of me goes, yeah, if you wanted me to make, I know a king size bedspread, that in itself I don't have a problem with. It's the fact that there's nearly 100 bobbins to make 3 inches, so multiply it out, holy shit, that's a lot of bobbins. And while I've got bobbin holders, as we've seen, I've got some beautiful bobbin holders. They don't work so well with these straight bobbins because they just kind of slide straight out of it. I've got other bobbins. I've got many other bobbins. And I know Flusum V will laugh at me, but the more I think about it, the more I want a 3D printer, right? The more I want a 3D printer so that I can make the exact bobbin of my choosing. For I want one that holds quite a lot of thread, so I only have to wind it on once and forget about it for a really long time. Secondly, not that these bobbins can't hold a fair bit. Let's be reasonable. These could hold a lot more than I've got on there. But in terms of making, net curtains. So, let me go back a step. My brain does this. Well, it is, isn't it, Flusum V? And this is where I struggle. Right, so here is the problem, Ellie. Around about September last year, probably about the same time you decided to do lace making too, I woke up one morning and my brain went, Liz. Yes, brain. I want to do lace making. Brain, we haven't done that in like 30 something years. What? Okay. Any particular reason? I want to make a net curtain. Brain, that's a lot of lace, Brain. Yeah, but I want to make a net curtain. Brain, we've had the curtain discussion before. Now, Brain has wanted to make a double knitted curtain out of basically almost thread before, because he almost wanted to do the cherry blossom style picture that you find on like Chinese crockery. It kind of wanted to do a kind of a picture board story thing. I don't know what it would be because I can't draw stick men, so I don't know what the hell it thought it was doing. But this is what it wanted to do. But I worked out there were going to be like a couple of probably 2,000-3,000 stitches per row, and that the rows would have to be the height of the window because it was to cover 3 windows, and it would probably take me an entire day to do 1 row. And at that speed, bugger off, right? So Brain and I have had this argument about curtains before. And I think this was it going, well, this will be quicker, right? Because you only need one side and half of its holes. And so, it's got to go quicker, right? Well, potentially, yes. But it's what do you do with the 50 gazillion million piles of bobbins while you work on it? Now, I have sufficient savings to go and buy 50 billion bobbins. Enough to make a net curtain in one piece. And technically I've got enough. Well, I definitely have enough bobbins, just not all of the same kind. Because, I've been a bit of a klepto over bobbins. Hence I'm idly looking at two other kinds that I'm looking to buy. One, I want to try the German hooded bobbins because I really like that idea. And secondly, there was a French bobbin that I was sharing with Nautical earlier, in that they are a bit like lip sills, in that they are like a top with a little bottom, and you twist the bottom one way and it lets it out, you twist it the other and it shortens it. And I know how they work because I've got 2 brain cells. So basically you could convert German hooded bobbins. Now they wouldn't look the same, but they would work the same. Again, 3D printer would mean you could make them the same, right? So there is this little bit of me that's kind of, I really want to try this, and I quite like the idea of the German hooded bobbins so that they're not all, open, and for the exact reasons that Germans did it, was so that your greasy, mucky mitts weren't going all over the threads in the bobbins. Now, obviously, as a general rule, we hold the bottom and the threads at the top, but principles, right? So from that point of view, I was, I'm really up for some hooded bobbins. I want to try them. They're probably no good for work like this on a fairly flat surface, but they'd be great for roller pillows kind of things, bolster pillows. I'm going to put some pins in here just to hold this down a little bit more. Hang on. Pin you down at the end just to kind of keep you happy. Like this. Right. Don't need you just yet because I got no bobbins. Time to be knotting the bobbins again. So Ellie, one thing I will show you, which Nauticout has taught me. Now, I don't know if Nauticout's here. I think he's out, actually. But Nauticout is a knot god. He is the king of knots. He doesn't make lace, but he finds some of the overlap between our 2 hobbies interesting. Now, I'm not going to say that he is the most fascinated person by it, because I'm not going to speak for him. But he keeps coming back, so he obviously doesn't hate it too much. And I think he comes back for my rather soulful banter. Now, there are a lot of ways to tie a knot between 2 bobbins, right? And I will try and zoom in a little bit, but I don't want to zoom in too much because, well, then I tend to go out of shot. So, there are lots of things. There's one where you put 2 together like this, and you put one under the other. And this is the problem I have with threads, is that once they've been near a bobbin, they have little lives. So you do one under each other, but it needs to be on my other finger. So there we go. Right. Then you do kind of wrapping arounds. Then you try and tuck them under each other, which works really, really, really well. I've got quite a few of my bobbins secondhand. In fact, my favourite bobbin, she says, wondering where the box of those is right now. Because I have... First of all, I do not like British Midland bobbins, the one with spangles on the bottom. Spangles can go yeet themselves off a really, really short pier into the sea. They should be burnt and used as fire starters. I absolutely hate. Now, I don't hate the bobbins, I just hate the spangles. And again, probably shouldn't be plastic. I I've got quite a few wooden ones. My favourite ones... By the way, we are not alone. There are other Spangle haters as well. So, in terms of the bobbins that I love the most, to define them, they've got really, really big flat tops. Well, almost flat tops. I call this a well to put the thread in, a dip, whatever you want to call it, right? So the threading section then is obviously quite deep, because seriously, the tops of these things are like this. So it's quite deep. Then they have a really slender bit, and then they come out into a big bulge, right? Hang on, let me go find one, it'll be easier. Oh bobbin, wherefore art thou bobbin? You're not in that box. Oh, you might be in this box. No, that's those. It's not you. So it's not you. It's not you. Yeah, you can tell I've got a bobbin issue. Yeah, whatever. Must be. No, it's not you. So where are the box of bobbins for you? Where is that? What have we done with them, kids? Where have we hid it? They were in a bag, actually. That's right, they were in a bag. I kind of made a leap for freedom because I looked at you funny. Sake. Everything I touch runs away, and I live in a world where every flat thing doesn't stay on a flat surface. Move, dog. Why does it feel like it should be in here, but it's not? I know what I'm looking for. I can't see it. Slightly insane, I think, so you know that may not say much about your poor mum. Where the hell is it? You down there? Ah, there you are. I have found you. So, after all that, this is my most favourite bobbin. That's alright then, as long as she won't be offended being compared to me. These are my favourite bobbins because they sit really, really well in stitch holders, because if I put the stitch holder in and put a bobbin in it, you can kind of trap the bit in the middle and they don't come out. Whereas, for example, if I put these in here, these can slide out without so much as a second thought. The only problem is, well, they're quite bulky. And when you need lots of them, bulky is not such a hot idea. Now, if I was not on stream, I would probably happily rewind all of these straight ones onto these just to cut down one level of frustration of wanting to kill everything. Because these things really aren't quite good. They're good for bolster pillows because you can do the thing at the bottom. The only one thing I will say is the big tops do suffer from tangling. The same is true with the Danish mushroom head bobbins that I've been using for my squares. And I never finished my conversation on the squares. So, let me put this away so I don't lose it. So let's continue on with these, even though they're slightly infuriating. And this table is really not straight. There we go. So why am I making strips and talking of squares? Well, I've been making squares, in fact. Well, I can show you one because the tin's just here. So I currently have 7 squares. Let me zoom out a bit so you can see. I have 7 squares with very straight edges so that when I join them together, the edges will be square and you'll be able to see, much like a patchwork quilt, the square. And, you know, here's a pile more. 6 more in there. So I've done 7 squares. But to be honest, I'm getting a bit bored of squares. And for whatever reason, this strip, which as I can prove to those who were not around the first time I did this, let's put the bobbins out of the way. So this square, what you might be able to tell is you make triangles. And this triangle generally takes me a week. Therefore, half a square takes me 2 weeks. This strip, which is half a square, took me 4.5 days. And not because, oh, it's shiny and new and interesting. It just took 4.5 days. So, now, if the joining is going to be a trillion times harder, I may not save time in the long run. But you see, I need, for my net curtain, 18 of these, and I've done 7 since September. Let that sink in a little. In basically 7 months, I've made 7 squares. If this takes 4.5 days to make what would have been half a square, 2 weeks, yeah, oof is definitely. Now again, the longevity of the project does not put me off. But I am feeling very conscious of the joins and wishing that I could do better. So, but the fact that this only took 4.5 days, and potentially this is quite busy, I wouldn't necessarily have quite so busy for a net curtain. To be honest, if this had, you know, in this kind of space, I would expect there to be, you know, maybe at most 5 little motifs, not the whole shebang. What are you doing, dog? Are you eating something you shouldn't be? Maybe? Now, Now, this was not meant to be a thing of beauty. This was meant to be test panel and to take on one of the 3 nemesis that I have. The first nemesis is Picos. Well, first nemesis is Spangles. We've already established. Basically, I want a t-shirt with "Down with Spangles," right? Secondly, Picos. I hate Picos. I'm not exactly a flower girl. And while I like Bucks Point and Chantilly and Bunch and Flanders, and I'm cool with all of that kind of stuff, Picos can go do one. Picos can just sod off. Next up, I quite like how they look to an extent in the right situation. Tallies. So tallies are on my list of things that really not overly keen on. And spiders. I don't like spiders. Not the little things that crawl around my house. I mean, I won't say I like them. I don't dislike them. And lace spiders kind of fall into the same category. In that I don't like them. And the biggest problem I had was that the very first square I made had spiders in. That was the original design, the one that I bought and paid for. My variation removed the spiders, changed all the stitches, but more importantly, didn't have spiders in. Because I did half-stitch spiders, and half-stitch spiders, which are only have kind of 4 front legs, 4 back legs, so not quite your 8-legged spider in a way, but kind of is, disappeared inside the mesh ground and just looked like fuck-ups. And that was it. No, not having that. So hence needing to redesign it, because not having the scraps, didn't really want the little bodies, because as a net curtain, didn't really need it convincing the dog that there's flies, spiders on the wall, because I've had a dog who did that, and it was a wretched nightmare, and he learned it off my ex-husband, who had a thing about flies, so the dog got a thing about flies, and the dog obviously had floaters, and he would stare at a wall whining and howling because he was convinced there was a fly, and you had to smack the exact spot so that he would then bark out of delight and the floater would move. Yeah. Anyway, so hence the fact that this took half the time, well, less than half the time, a quarter of the time almost, of a square, potentially then... Hello! So, hey, potentially, the strip is a lot faster. Something that mentally doesn't make any sense, because making triangles is not exactly hard. It's not like doing circular things and you've got dense bits and, you know, or anything like that. You just kind of work your way through it. But this, you know, it took me considerably less time. Therefore, if I could keep this speed up and this was normal, well, to cover the same distance would be a quarter of the time. So instead of nearly 18 months, well, now you're talking kind of reasonable figures. So as long as the joins look all right, it's going to be a goer. So let's get back to where we're at, in that we are going to start strip number 2. Well, that's quite interesting. My strip is almost exactly the same size as my phone. To be honest, I assumed it would take the same time, because I'm doing the same sort... Thanks for that, dog. It's really helpful. You know, you would have thought, you know, cross twist, pin, cross twist would take the same amount of time wherever you are, right? Now, okay, there's a little delay in turning a corner. But only a little. And then obviously there's a bit at the end where you join it. Okay. But other than that, you would expect it to take the same amount of time. So I am slightly puzzled. Anyway, back to the Nauticelt knot, right? So, there is a video on YouTube of a lovely lady who shows you that to tie 2 bobbins together, to all of these result in the same knot, You make a loop with one hand, and you, hang on, I have to lick them. Hang on, I have to lick them so they're straight. I don't know whether it's my autism or whether it's just because they're shit. I need to lick them so that they're straight enough. So she then folds this so that this goes over, underneath? Yeah, underneath, and sticks out the top so that you've got a cross like that. You then get a loop like this. You bring the loop up through the middle and you get the end through the loop, and you try and, you can see kind of why this doesn't work for me, right? And you try and put the end through the loop that you shove through the hole like this, and then you grab the end and you give it a pull and you screw it up. Naughty Celt, being the king of knots, said, well, flip it so that it's over the top and pointing down. Make a loop and you point it down, which of course now you have gravity in your favour, and now you have your knot. So all hail Naughty Celt, king of knots. The only thing is you can't really do it and leave short ends, so you have to trim them. But it works like 99.9% of the time, and when it doesn't, he's even explained how to fix it. So, which is that if the knot looks like it's falling in the wrong place, will you stop rolling? It's because this table leans. I've got to work out where the edge is, where the angle is. Hang on. There's a handle and an angle, and where's the little handle? There it is. There we go. All right. So we put you over there like that. And then we get the next pair out the pile. And we make them longer and we do another knot. Naughty Celt did suggest beeswax, for which I've got some beeswax. But it doesn't seem to help because I think I need to warm it up slightly because it was either because it was too cold when it arrived, having been in the Amazon van, or it's just a bit too solid. But made my tail too long. There you go. But to be honest, it's not like you have to do this too much. I mean, it's enough, but it is. So make you a bit longer. I try and keep the knots. You're being awkward. Can you not? Literally. Try and keep the knots at the top because, well, keeps it easy that way. So let's think about this. You are. Speaking of which, not that it's in my bra, but it is. Hang on. I don't know if I can reach it without bashing everything. I did bash it a bit, but not as much as I thought. So I bought a box of beeswax because you can. I bought quite a bit. Now it's been sitting on my computer and in this room, so it should now be a little bit more amenable if it was, because it's been outside. So the question is, if I take this end here and give it a bit of a wipe over the beeswax, does that help? Well, it does actually. Yeah, that kind of works. Straightens it out a bit. Stick that there then. Right. So, let me go back. Right. So you're a thing. So you're a pair and you're a pair. So I want to 1, 2 and put back. So you're a pair and you're a pair. Right. Then we need some more. So the Sin hats, the elastic bands that I put on these, are because I don't find that half hitches hold very well sometimes. Now it is slightly thread dependent, it is slightly bobbin dependent, but it's just one of those kind of screw it. It's just easier to stick an elastic band on it. And in case you're wondering, there are orthodontic elastic bands that I got off Amazon. So we are not talking, you know, desperately highly unaffordable elastic bands. We are talking real damn cheap, you know, 500 for, what was it, £3.50 or something off Amazon elastic bands. And of course, they are very much reusable. So, wholly recommend. That's right. Eyesight failure here for the poking bits through holes. Nope, that didn't work. And I didn't spot it in time. So let's poke you a bit more there. Itch, itch, itch. There we go. And pin. Rory, you're hatching my bobbins, my man. I love my dogs very much, but there are times, like all animals and children, where, frankly, I could not. Now, to be honest, it's nearly always her. For she is the most scatterbrained crackhead I've ever met that came with fur. Because she is the kind who wants a hug, but before she can even achieve getting on your lap, even if she's running at you to leap, she's already thinking, oh, actually, I could go and do this, and wants to go and do something else now. And as a result of that kind of attitude, by the time she's on your lap, she's getting off your lap, because she usually changes her mind mid-air. And when she does climb on your lap, it's not really the right word for it. It's more like she's one of the alien face huggers, in that she will leap and kind of clamp it round your head. Which could be a bit much for visitors, to be honest. You know, if you're not exactly 100% dog friendly, do not come. For the dog will face hug you, and she has no shame. And she'll be offended if you're not prepared to hug her. So it's kind of a deal. You came into her house, you will accept face huggers. But as I said, by the time she's face hugging, she's getting off to go and do something else. Now, this is where it becomes annoying, because it also means that she'll get a spot on the couch, and then 2 milliseconds later, leap up like someone shot her in the backside. And, well, then she wants to go off and do other things. And of course, in doing that, she's you know, pushed, shoved, clawed. To give you an idea, when I lie down on the couch, which I occasionally do to watch some stuff on the computer, or I would say the TV, but it's streamed, so it's on my computer really. She decided to use my face as a launch pad and dug her claw in my cheek enough that there was blood. Not a single thought. She, you know, not even a sorry mum, you know. No. Too busy leaping off. And then almost the moment she's leapt off, she wants back on. So it does get a little bit much. So let's do our bobbly bobblies down the side. And then we do the... Sorry, smacked the microphone with my knuckle. No, that's not where I need it to be. That's where I need it to be. No, it's not. I was right the first time. But that's not the right side. There's... You're a bit short. Let's make you a bit longer. And this is the other problem I have. Sometimes the knots just don't want to let go. So... Or like this one, they fall off the top and act like that it's not their fault when it is. There we go. Right. So that's you. Now we do you. But let's put you back up because you need to be longer because the knot stays up the top. Let's pin. So, well, what kinds of lace have you made? Ellie, sorry. It's got an eye in it, Ellie. Forgive me for getting it wrong again. We discussed this when I started the last strip. One of the biggest problems with this start of having a flat edge is that you put 2 bobbins on but you only seem to use one and all the way across, but of course it's not true because the first thing the new pair of bobbins will do is go through this last unused pair, but it does feel like you put on 2 and use 1, and it does kind of get you a bit because it does seem to be constantly prepping 2 pairs of bobbins and then only working one of them. So yes, once again, this stream is not really the most educational of lace making streams, but it is a very practical view of what my end of the world looks like, which is mainly a lot of faff. Well, maybe that's a question to ask, is to what style of lace you're doing. Because there are many similarities, and this is something we've talked about quite a few times, is that it's a little like they all went on a lace making week, you know, all those centuries ago. They went on a lace making week. And by the time they got back to where they lived, which took a while because obviously they didn't exactly, you know, fly and have fast cars. But by the time they got home, they remembered a lot of what they saw and the principles that were involved. But what they couldn't remember was the exact order and how it was achieved. So they then fiddled around a bit and went, hey, this looks a bit like what we did. This will do. So... for example, The difference between Bucks Point and Chantilly lace is that in Bucks Point you do cross and 3 twists. In Chantilly you do 3 twists and a cross. Chantilly also has a cross and 3 twists, and that's called closed. So, same shit, right? All lace is made of two moves, cross and twist. And, you know, whether you call it this stitch, that stitch, or the other stitch, it all boils down to, you know, arguably most of them use the exact same stitches, just some of them have different names for it. Sometimes you do slightly different order for it, but the principle generally ends up roughly the same deal. Now, some of them, much like making a snake and all the rest of it, you often you do a shape and with a smaller number of bobbins. So, Flanders. I've done some Flanders. I will warn you now. If, like me, you have bobbin anxiety, you ain't going to like Flanders. So, in this, which is torsion, where there is a spot for a pin, 2 pairs of bobbins meet. In Flanders, it's 4. Let me quickly grab this. Hang on. There he is. If I tell you that this little square, bear in mind the maximum distance worked was this diagonal here, this little square took more bobbins than this strip. Right? This is Flanders, and if you look really carefully, she says holding it up, the only real difference between this and mine is that this meshwork is a lot firmer. For example, if I hold it like this, it's solid. It can droop, but it's also kind of solid. It is not stretchy, it is not. Bucks Point and Chantilly lace are stretchy and so work exceptionally well with clothing. Bucks Point and Chantilly look like this because they are the same shit. So, I dropped one. So, these are some Bucks Point. Hang on, I've dropped a pin. I saw it a minute ago. There it is. Don't eat it in dog paws. There's another one. Oh, I've thrown a few on the floor. By the way, other useful thing to get yourself. I can't tell you where it is right this millisecond, but I have a handheld. That's not where I thought it was. Handheld metal detector. It's a little thing about kind of the size of a small torch. Really useful for finding the pins that you dropped. So this is a Bucks Point bookmark without the picots, because as I mentioned earlier, screw picots. Now, if I do this though, it stretches. It has give to it. As does this little bookmark. Has plenty of stretch to it. So this is a really good thing for clothing because clothing moves. So I wholly recommend those for Bucks Point and Chantilly as styles to look into. This, no. This can just go do one along with some spangles. It and spangles are... I'm glad I worked out how. That's it. Yeah, you are. About 10. Yep. But yes, recommend Bucks Point for clothing. Which is British, by the way. But it's kind of the same shit, as I said, so... You'll be surprised. It'll kick in a minute. Twitch says it says starting soon. There it goes. Rory, you're sitting on everything. Yay! According to Twitch, there's potentially another 1.5 minutes of ads, but there we go. Yeah. Isn't that always the way? I know exactly how you mean. I had a game I used to play on my phone and I never got any ads in it. And then suddenly one day I did, and that was the end of that. Yeah. It's almost like once they've found you, that's it. They're never going to leave you, you know. Yes. Very much. I have a kind of creepy stalker, actually. When I was little, and I mean like 7, I had a friend at school. And I don't remember much of her because my parents never let me have friends around and stuff. So, yeah. So, while I remember her existence, and I remember, I don't know if it was her house or somebody else's house or whatever. I do remember seeing her outside school, I think once, right? So we are not talking like, bestest buds here. I mean, I probably talked to her, at school, but to be honest, no one talked to me. So if she was talking to me, that's a pretty bad sign for her. But anyway, everywhere I've gone as an adult, so every social media platform, she finds me. And it's kind of like, love, I remember your name. I remember that you existed, but then I can name quite a few people in my school. Oh, hang on, spambot. I can remember quite a few of the children from school, but I wouldn't recognise them in the street. I would, I can't tell you much about them other than they shared a class with me, Um, and yet there she is. Every wretched social media type thing. And I don't get it. I don't get her fascination. I'm not that interesting as a human being. Let's move. Well, I get this. I see 8 people on Twitch, and, I appreciate that you're all here, but I also don't kind of understand it, because, this is me at my miserable, trying to pretend that, I don't want to just go to bed and wake up, sometime next century, and hope that it's all over by then. So, yeah, that's, you're a bit short over there, but there we go. This is true. I will likely be around tomorrow. The only time I guarantee is Friday afternoons, which will be 3 p.m. till about 5 p.m. your time. However, I do try and stream every day, but there are days where I just never get around to it. So I don't tend to promise when I'm going to stream, but I'm on holiday this week. I am not working this week. Therefore, I have very little excuse, other than I got into something and forgot the time. So it's usually around kind of tea time for me when I stream. It's a good way to stop me eating too much. So I would like to say I will be back, you know, kind of evening tomorrow. I need a pen to dig this out. You see, this is why I don't like bobbins that don't have roses at the top, because if you don't have a rose at the top, the thread eats its way into the threads, and then it doesn't tend to flow off when you need it to, and it makes it evil to roll it back up as well. I'm just making them all a bit longer because I can, really. And I've got the space for this. And you see this one just took a straight leap off. Well, as I say, I hope to be here every day. So, you know, if you're about, if you join the Discord thing, it will be a bit better notification as to when I'm streaming than, because Twitch tends to suck a little bit at notifications. To join the Discord thing, it's !socials. Or is it just Discord? Hang on. I need to check. Hang on. This one. Hang on. It might just be Discord. Bear with me a minute. Commands. There we go. These are the ones missed. Discord. ! Discord. If you do ! Discord, go away flappy thing. There's a flappy thing. But yes, if you do that, it will notify you when I go live. Or I post my excuses not to. Bit of both, you know. It's a bit long. You're in the way. Rory is currently hatching my bobbin supply, which is not being very helpful. So I appreciate that this is not necessarily mind-blowingly fascinating for many of you. But this is the stark reality of crafting. It is often made up of much mind-numbing, repetitive, cursing trials and tribulations. So, and dog helping. dog helping, of course, for all dog owners who know this. That's where that came from. Oops. Yes, I know, Amy. I threw pins on the floor because I didn't look, and I picked up the pot and there were pins on top. Yes, I know. Can you not? Don't think there are any for you to tread in. Probably are, but I don't see any. So this one lost its sin hat. So now you have a sin hat. Now we do the beeswax thing. Amy, get out of there. Oh, Amy. There is nothing there, animal. It's in your head. I do not care for things in the street while they're in the street. When they bang at the front door, you can make as much noise as you like. If they're trying to break through the front door, you can especially make as much noise as you like. Rory, before you come back up here, for goodness sake, animal. Come on. But you need to shove over a bit, because you're knocking all the bobbins out of their happy case, and they'll go on the floor and I'll never find them. Can you not? Pinged a pin somewhere. Don't know where that went. That's more than one pin. put these pins back in my pin cushion before I end up with crazy. Right, let's put them away. Put you back in the top. Oh, rub face. That's better. Seven. I shall put them in a stick after the next two pairs. For the next two pairs, intersect with the edge of the spider. So hopefully most of you had a nice Easter and are not dreading going back to work too much tomorrow. in a way, I'm quite glad that the first method I tried didn't work. There's a reason for that. Because if you think about it, if I've got a metre long strip that I need to join up to it, well, that's a metre long. While it's, say, 3 inches right now, by the time you get to the far end, well, it's not going to be 3 inches wide now, is it? It's going to be like 27 inches wide kind of thing. And as a result, having all of that flapping around, trying to keep it straight and without it pulling on the edges would have been very difficult and was a concern that I had. So from that point of view, happy that that is proving to be not invisible enough, in my humble opinion. So oh, bye-bye, Solution V. Thank you for coming. It is our part. It is kind of like 20 to 11, so, you know, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we shall put in our first stick. Let's stick. Pop you at the edge. I'm not going to need you again in a hurry. Let's do a couple more. Oops, someone's hat came off. Hello. Nauticaut's knot technique has saved my sanity to a large extent, because tying the knots on these bobbins was causing me much frustration. As you can tell, I am not a patient girl, but I was struggling with the knots because 9 times out of 10 the knots would fail, and I would find myself getting really quite moody about it because, you know, you'd be halfway through using it and then it would kind of go and then, you know, die. And obviously this is distinctly not what we need. And Nauticaut spent some time, bless him, and worked out an alternative method that might be easier for me, made a video, gave me a couple of other solutions to help with the knots, to make them better, even more kind of strong than they are. So, but this is the knot de jour, which is the traditional lace knot, to be honest. But it is just so much easier for me to do that. And without Nautica, I would not have been able to do that. So even though I don't think he's here, I am very pleased that Nautica helped me with that. For it was one of those trying things. It was also Nautica's suggestion to get some beeswax. So all hail Nautica, saviour of all, frankly. For he is a wise man. And I owe him much sanity. Let's put those up there for a minute. You're trying to escape. No, I've got escaping bobbins. Rory, can you move? Can you move? No, apparently not. My bobbin collection is trying to escape. I don't really have anywhere else I can put it. Yes, you! Now you. Funny enough, if you bop him with the bag, he moves, though. I asked you nicely to move. You didn't, so I bopped you with it. I'm going to moan about flat things on flat surfaces again. For I'm putting flat things on flat things, and they're falling off. And all these bobbins are seeping out this cloth. Even though the cloth is more than big enough to cover them, they're just being shit. Checking to check that there aren't any obvious escapees. I definitely need something to hold them in. See, again, this was where, well, if I had a 3D printer, I'd make like a bobbin holder. But to be honest, a decent pot works, but I've kind of used all my pots for things. I'm kind of out of pots. Haven't really got any bags either. Don't look at me like that, dog. Go on. You do realise, dogs, I own this house and therefore have right to do my biddings within it, okay? If you own the house and you paid for it, I would do your biddings, for I would be your guest in the house. Yes. Well, I know what you'd have me do all day. You would have me giving infinite belly scritches, head rubs, gentle strokes and feedings. Yes. But you don't own the house. So I wish for you to bark and be more chill, young lady. Bark less, more chill. And just sit the fuck down and stay sat down, preferably for I don't know if you can hear her. Get on the couch, get off the couch, get on the couch, get off the couch, get on the couch, get off the couch. That was quite impressive. Right. Managed to drop it and catch it on the beeswax block. The only wish I do have is that there was a way of tying these bobbins and not having to leave such long tails on the other end. For goodness sake. That didn't work very well. The thread just snapped. For goodness sake. Let's try that again. So the first time I stuffed up the knot, the second time I let go of the end too soon, and the third time I do the knot, it's looking good, and the end breaks off. It's not my day. Try that again. That's better. Before you ask, no, I didn't put it too hard. It was definitely weakened for some reason. Maybe I put a pin through it, which is one way of upsetting the apple cart a bit. long now, but there we go. dropped it. Where's your sin collar gone? Get you a new one. Got an itch. Oh, I've got an itch. Oh, I've got an itch, people. Oh, that's better. Right. What the hell was that? The lid. I felt something make a leap for freedom. twist yet. Thanks for coming, Zukin. I'm gonna do the rest of this spider and then be done for the day, so you're not gonna miss much. Not that you know what I mean. But thank you for coming, my friend. Bye bye. Nearly halfway. But we learnt that one method that I had hoped would be brilliant is not. So we made learnings. We know something today we did not know when we started. Let's grab my bundle of bobbins, put them there and hope that I haven't lost any. Put this over the top because that's a good thing. Now, all my other cloths have got completely jumbled up due to Rory hatching them. So let's sort some of them out as we put them over the top. No, you don't need anything like this many cloths, but it's just the way I roll. I just put them all on here because, well, then I know where they are. Because, well, that's a thing. And then this one. There we go, that's my pile of cloths. I probably shouldn't leave my beeswax where the dog might eat it. Anyway, let's postpone the ads because, well, that's a thing. We'll get to the end and it'll snooze the ads. So, let's say goodbye. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for accompanying me in my mayhem. I have not been my most cheery self, but, you know, that's not a first. But I do thank you for coming. I thank you for listening and taking part. I will be back tomorrow, almost certainly, because, well, as I say, I've got the day off, so I've got very little excuse for not. That doesn't mean that there might not be a day when I get stuck into something else. And for goodness sake, now my crochet hook's made a run across the room. But I will be back almost certainly tomorrow for more of the same, where we will introduce the rest of the bobbins and get on down to making our lace, as we did before. We now have plans, but that's a good thing. It really is a good thing. So I look forward to seeing you again. I hope you'll join me there. Until then, bye bye.